So my thoughts on No Exit is immediately when I saw the trailer, I could tell that this was based on a book and a good book at that. And I'm like, done properly, this could be a good story. But because I knew it was coming to Disney Plus and Hulu, I've bought into it now, and my main thing is probably 11/22/63, that adaptation. Had all the resources, had the
That
acting.
book sucks. 11/22/63 sucks.
But regardless, the TV show is like perfectly fine. Never aspires to be
Yeah.
greater, and you could even say that it's not worth your time
No.
for the amount of time.
The book isn't either for being like a 700-page fucking book.
So to me, that felt like content, and that's been my signpost now for everything that comes to Hulu. This was a bit better than that. I just think that the premise is really strong. Of like, you have a woman who's an addict. If she leaves, she'll be in jail. That's the status quo. And her mother is dying, so she decides to leave. So she wants to. She immediately, there's a clear goal, and then it does the brilliant story move of saying, you know what, that's not enough. We have to fit one more thing in there, and that's when she gets run off the road. She's already on the run, and then she encounters something that puts her in even more danger. They find a body in the car, a live body, could be a kidnapping, and she has to hole up with several strangers. And assault on Precinct 13 style plot, which I love. The siege plot, I believe they call it in screenwriting. And I just love those plots, those action thriller, locked one room kind of high concept premises. Pretty good, but it's the kind of thing where I was thinking the whole time, this could be elevated really easily by some slightly punchier direction or some less than stock writing. They stick close to the signposts on formula, and it's pretty basic formula. There are pleasures in that, and there are even some nice shots in it. But yeah, I'm like, this could have been 1 inch higher. This could have been better. My dad really liked it. What do you guys think?
This was pushed as a whodunit, and they threw away the whodunit at about a third of the way in.
As far as it could possibly go.
I disagree.
I was going to be annoyed if they kept who could it really be now that this?
That was what I was hoping for. The whole movie. That's what I wanted.
Did you want it to be longer?
No, I wanted it to be the same length. I thought a third of the way in, we got we know who it is. Okay. Look at the clock. Oh shit, there's still 2/3 of a movie here you don't need.
But I was fucking thinking, okay, I feel honestly any reasonable person can suss out, like, the only thing we're worried about is if it's the Allstate guy. Because if it's the Allstate guy, we're all fucked. If it's Dennis Haysbert.
I have to call him David Palmer.
Yeah. He played, he replaced Michael Clark Duncan in Sin City as Manute, the guy who could crush people with his skull. And he was the president on 24. He's like...
So one thing that I thought would be an interesting discussion about this movie is your opinion of addiction going into it. Because as soon, and this is a very personal thing. I think people's opinions of addicts is a very, very personal thing. Now, for me, and I'm sure I'll piss off a great number of people, I already have, I see addicts, true addicts, as human garbage. I see them as less than human, minus human people. I don't give a shit if they live or die. I understand that a lot of addicts struggle, and a lot of them get past their addiction. The addicts that I've known very closely throughout my upbringing and still now are still severe addicts, and I see them as garbage people.
Do you think they can be cured?
No. Addiction is not a disease as much as people want to tell you it is. Addiction is a choice. Cancer is a disease. Addiction is not. Addiction is a fucking choice.
Make it any less hard.
You don't think it's
I don't give a shit.
You don't think it's a mental disease, though?
No, not at fucking all. You know what a mental disease is? Dementia. Because you don't choose to get dementia. You choose to be an addict. And so when I'm watching this fucking movie,
point here.
and as soon as they're like, she's an addict, don't give a shit what happens to her. Like, and immediately, I don't care about what happens to her. She get killed, don't give a shit. She might get robbed, don't care. Her mother might die. Don't give a shit if she sees her mom. I don't care about her as a character. And as soon as it does that, for me, as soon as it does that, I'm like, this has already gone down a bad road for me. I'm not going to care what's going to happen.
There's no exit from this.
But that, for me, and I was like, you know what? That's a fascinating thing because people have, and again, the movie, I was
So
not
did your
interested.
opinion change?
What's that? No,
Did you-
not at all.
Okay.
And I was not interested in the movie at all, but it made me think in my head, I'm curious to see if your opinions of addiction would change how you see the movie.
The way that I saw it, before we get to Phil, sorry, Phil, is that I think, number one, I fundamentally disagree with what you're saying. Maybe because I'm younger, hopefully, thankfully, not everybody feels that way that you do, because I feel anybody can be, any problem can be overcome with the right support system. And I think even taking your premise of, again, I don't agree, but let's say this person is human garbage, like they are zero, okay? Then what a great starting point for like a character to overcome.
Absolutely.
And do that. So from a story perspective, I was bought in. And I honestly think that the movie hedges its bets. It's part of its problem of like that it short sells the character's emotional journey of like you don't really have to be invested in her addiction plotline or her own
It
personal
kind
health.
of has nothing to do with
And
anything,
it-
really.
Yeah, and it also doesn't like factor into the plot of the movie, which would hugely elevate it. Like
Outside
it's
of,
in it when
outside
she-
of
It was a
cocaine,
throwaway thing.
cocaine makes
No,
it
no, no,
possible
no.
to rip a nail out of your hand.
I was thinking about that. That's the one thing that definitely felt like a holdover from a novel. That like, oh well, what does this say then about like, oh she has and it was interesting to me that she was, I guess, a cocaine addict or a general
Or just general junkie, yeah.
The problem is, again, if they were more specific, it would be more impactful. And it's kind of like a 90s, 80s TV movie thriller on a high budget in that way. Because it's like, it takes like social issue of the time, a mid-level, like a decent, like on a higher budget, like essentially that of a movie. Like it's a 20th century Fox movie before it got overturned, and then it was probably midway through development or well into development, and they decided to make it into Hulu. But like, it lacks specificity that would have elevated it, but it's just using that as a transport for the plot, not the other way around. The filmmakers aren't trying to make a social issue statement. They're just like, oh, savvy thing of the day, let's pick this to tell this story.
Yeah.
All right, Phil, what about you?
I completely agree with that because, like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. None of this addiction thing mattered to the plot. You could have had someone starting on the road, could have avoided that whole first part,
Yeah.
and just go into the.
Yeah, would it have been better if the beginning part, like, honestly didn't exist at all? Although it's like, I think it's a great setup for the story. It doesn't exactly belong in this story because wouldn't it have been more interesting, weirdly, if they did the Station 11 approach where you had a person in the car, like Phil said, and then you figure out that they're an addict. So then you don't trust their
Not to
point.
mention being from Kingston, I think all of us have seen snowstorms.
What?
Yeah.
Was this a snowstorm in this movie? Again,
Yes.
the logic
Well,
part of my brain.
It was a selective snowstorm
Goes-
where people can survive.
yeah, or where
without
the
free-
cop can talk you through the window and there's little
Did
bits
you
of snow.
know-
Or the
fucking
cops
falling.
even on the fucking road.
Did you
Bullshit.
notice there was this huge snowstorm, right? And then they showed the cop driving afterwards.
Pro-
No snow.
No snow. No.
No snow on the roads.
Not to mention the
As
cop says I'm
Canadians,
telling
that's what
everybody
offends us.
to go to this fucking place to hide out. She's the last one to show up. Cop never comes back to check on anybody. I'm like, this plot is stupid,
How about
man.
the fact that he's just like, promise me you won't try and drive through. Why doesn't she try?
But he also says, I'm telling everyone I meet to go to that place. Why does no one show up after him?
and he's like 5 minutes later.
I thought
He's
maybe
5 minutes down the road.
he's dead. Oh, I was like, well, that'd be a fucking cool thing. No, he just shows up at the ending.
If it were a horror movie instead, it would actually probably be a better, ballsier movie.
I wish, for me personally, I
was
wish
thinking
they
the
had
same
taken the addict thing
Yeah.
out
thought-
of it. It
thought
was so pointless, and it started the movie on a bad note.
This
for me.
would make a great campy Halloween movie.
I was thinking like that or Sleepaway Camp or
or
something
the
like
babysitter or something like that. Yep.
You know what was funny though? What happened to me 2 nights ago is that I went to go.
Puberty.
Very
That's probably
funny.
how we got his
I-
hair.
Yeah, I went to see Uncharted, or I bought a ticket to go see Uncharted.
I was gonna say, I thought
And-
you were going to see Uncharted tonight.
Yeah, I am going tonight because I didn't go the other night. I
Yeah.
bought my ticket 2 nights ago for that showing, and then I tried to go and I didn't have winter tires on. It's not my vehicle, folks. But anyways, I physically couldn't like get a grip. Like my tire was skidding all over the place to the point where it was unsafe. I even passed an accident on the road. in that situation, which we can presume she was in, even in that situation, I would still fucking drive through. Because I'm like, oh, well, this is like, it's do or die. It's like you already know if she gets caught, she's going to prison. So is that a reasonable enough premise that, like, if a highway patrolman pulls you over and just says, oh, try not to go along. Even as a Canadian, I can tell you, I'm still
he
driving.
said don't go.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
said
said-
either
Also,
go back
he-
or go to this restaurant.
again-
Yeah, but what's stopping her? She just said that like,
That is a common like way for a cop
It's
to
a
say,
trope,
if
yeah.
you try to keep going,
I
and
will
I catch
arrest you.
I will arrest you. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
in
But
trouble.
again, you know, and I hate to bring it down again, but it's just something I've dealt with in my past. That's not what halfway houses are like. You can't just get up and fucking, hey, I'm stealing this guy's car and leaving.
That's not what happened. Like,
but she's.
But she does. She steals that guy's fucking keys and
But she
leaves.
is-
But
escape.
but the thing is this: the idea is that she is. Let's assume that she's not at a halfway house. So let's assume that she was like saved by jail. That she's on some. Well,
But it's
I-
it's a treatment program
Yeah,
that she's
yeah,
in.
it's a
Yeah,
rehab.
And it's a
but
rehab
she's-
center.
But on probation, not like is.
The idea is that she can
rehab-
very easily fucking leave, which
rehab-
is stupid.
Normally
Yeah.
is a place where you have to want to be there. So
That's
if
right,
you
yep.
walk out, you're out.
Yep.
Also,
You
they're
can
pretty.
walk out.
But my
Yeah, yeah.
point is,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is that
if
it's
they're
more
in
rehab
there
than halfway house.
and there's policing, and you've got to make sure like you don't just fucking wander out and steal someone's fucking car and leave. That's not how
or
it
the
works.
fact when she's leaving that nobody like I'm like, is somebody gonna come out and?
Well, not to mention every other cop
Well,
that's
he's
that
going
stopped
to her
you.
room at that time. So.
He
that
would
sees-
fucking know.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Hey,
pull this
you know,
person
we had to
over.
break out, like, a quarter
there's
of a mile
someone's
away.
reported this fucking car being
Not
stolen.
if
No,
it's like an hour away or something. Like
Yeah.
they wouldn't care.
that guy wouldn't
wouldn't
have
have-
reported his
it
fucking
wouldn't
car
have-
being stolen.
Let's assume.
Maybe he didn't look. He
Yeah,
was
let's
just
assume,
coming
I
up.
don't-
let's
I don't
assume
buy it.
there's a certain amount of time. But again, they don't mind that for
None
tension.
of this matters.
I want to say I did enjoy seeing this type of movie again, which I hadn't seen in a while, where it's like a high concept premise. And the setup, I know you say it starts off on the back,
bored.
but the premise, like as a premise of somebody who's
Concept of the movie.
yeah, the concept
Mm-hmm.
is good. Like where it's just this concept is strong that it held my interest.
It, it would work better if, like Phil said, if they didn't give up who the bad guy is fucking 20 minutes into the movie.
And it turned a little campy, and
Yeah.
I'm just like,
To me, like, were you guys saying, like, fucking tell somebody that there's somebody, like, I don't get why she doesn't say right away, I'm fucking rolling the dice. Like, I get, like, she notices, and then she goes in and says nothing. She's not like, hey, whose car is it out there? There's, like, a
you're
taillight or something.
trapped there with these people,
But,
and
but
No,
like,
but that
there's
was, that was my question too. Because Leslie and I were watching it together, and I was like, she sees a kid in the back of the car.
You know it's not the Allstate guy. Why don't you fucking
don't
tell the
know.
Allstate
you
guy?
don't know.
No, but
But
you
see,
know
I-
it's the boyfriend in that period, and they go back into
You
the
don't
room.
know.
See, I think she would, because so logically, when you're thinking of it, it can't be everyone in
Yes.
there. So you say to yourself, I'm going to go in, get a chair, bash the fucking window out of that car. Whoever comes at me clearly is the person responsible. But that means that other people won't be responsible. There's no way they can be in on it because there's multiple cars.
Yeah.
Who's gonna save her? Like, there's no guarantee that someone else is gonna come out and save her.
See,
Well,
I-
here's the thing. Here's the problem: is that
guess
I was not thinking
I
about
had-
the gun
I had
until
the
they brought it up. until they
assumption
showed it.
that, again, wrong on my part, that at least one of them will be a good person. So if she bashes out that fucking window,
How about the
that
fact
someone
that,
will come
like,
to save
the
her, or
nanny-
on her behalf of whoever the bad guys are would stop the bad
Do you
guys.
think do you think Phil that she would like even survive long enough in the back of the car for like hours
No.
without the
Well,
heater on?
They pretty
Presumably.
Much, yeah, they pretty much said
Okay.
that the guy was keeping on coming out and giving her heat.
Yeah.
Which again is highly suspect if
But
someone's
it's like
doing that.
it's this kind of interesting thing where they have to have the bad guys start in one place. Of in every movie like this, it's like, oh, they're bad, but they're not all the way bad now because we still need room for shifting alliances. Because
it
we
was-
don't have good writing.
It was poorly written. I just didn't enjoy it. I even with her being an addict, that part could have been cut out, and I don't think I would have started on such a bad fucking
But then
note.
it's Assault on Precinct 13, basically.
Assault on Precinct 13 is at least there's people that are assaulting, literally, it's, even though it's not Precinct 13, but that's besides the point, where they're constantly trying to break in to the place, and they need to keep them out with a limited amount of bullets, with bad guys, good guys. I got to be able to trust you. Like, There was none of that in this movie.
There wasn't enough shifting alliances, and I honestly thought of the nanny being involved was just
Stupid.
It was so out there. Although I love the.
It was all right.
There is one thing that I loved about this movie because I love giving a credit. There was some camera work that I liked. I liked the shot, the tracking shot of following her as she goes out the exit, and then that's the title card. I like that. Just isolated as a premise doesn't add some plot. And then the second thing was when the nanny says, "Oh, I had my headphones on," and it cuts to the child screaming and her just standing there.
Yeah.
That was like
That
the
was good.
one effective moment of the movie. I don't know how I felt about like the actress. Like she was fine.
She's fine.
I'd seen her in other stuff.
Everybody in the roles was adequate. The only
I
one I'd
hate
say
the
that I was
boyfriend, the bad guys.
The bad guy, yeah.
They're weak. Like I honestly feel like I could take like if it was
he
somebody more.
was
intense-
cardboard cutout bad guy.
How about the fact when they're like making out and then she like doesn't give up the ghost of like, hey, this fucking thing. Now in retrospect, it's supposed to make sense because the nanny was in on it, right? But the character doesn't know that at the time.
No, it's one of those things where like, hey,
Why is there no
you're
food?
safe
at
in
this
this
center?
situation.
Yeah.
I didn't
There
like
was
There's-
food
there's-
on the countertop. They were
yeah.
going to eat it, and I was like, "Oh, it's free! Who's giving out free stuff at a rest stop? That's crazy."
I like concept premises because it gives me ideas for my screenplay that I will
it.
one day
I
write.
need logic in even a story that's going to be a little bit out there. It needs to have at least a bit of a ground. I mean, even think
What
of
do you
fucking
think of
evil.
him lying about having a gun? Does that fly, or do you think they just come in there and blow? Like,
it could have worked if he had sold it, which he does for the best part. And I
Because
love
it's
when
him.
fucking Dennis Haysbert looks over and goes, "What the fuck did you do that for?" to his
Yeah.
wife. I thought that was great. But
I-
even think of something like Evil Dead 2.
It didn't
Evil
work.
Dead 2, they are out in the middle of a fucking forest in the woods that's been taken over by the devil.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, okay, that's a fun premise. There's logic to it. Why is no one coming? Why is no one rescuing him? Why didn't he tell him where he's going? All of that is set up. All you need, if you're going to tell a story, is a minute, just a little bit of logic to get to give your story a thrust to where it's got to go. It's when that logic starts to fall apart in a movie like this that I'm like, this is dumb. Usual Suspects, great example of logic that stayed throughout the entire fucking story.
Consistent.
By the end of it, you're like, well, it's kind of
Well,
crazy, but at
there's a-
least makes perfect fucking
like,
sense.
There's
This
the
movie
plot
didn't do
hole
that.
in Usual Suspects of why does Chaz Palminteri not figure
Oh,
this
there's
out
there's
way
100
earlier?
plot holes in it, but the logic thrusts the story and keeps
the
it
emotional
going.
one.
This is why it's a good campy Halloween movie, and
Not Halloween because it's not
Should have
scary.
been
no,
goofier.
but if they put it at Halloween and
Yeah.
and had like ribbons of Halloween stuff in
Yeah.
the place, it would fly. It would
Yeah.
be fun,
Yeah.
and they could turn it into like all these other ones where it goes
The
sequel,
Sitter.
sequel, and they could get away with it.
My thing before at least my letter grade was you made me forget. Fuck.
What's your letter grade, Philip?
Out of 10,
Out
what
of
would
10.
you rate this?
4.
I actually,
Oh yes, I remember what I forgot.
Always to interrupt Phil.
I actually enjoyed this movie, even though there's
Oh,
a lot
I remember
of
now. I have to
Oh,
say it. I
shit.
have to say it.
You know what I just
Fuck.
realized
Wait.
we haven't done? We haven't done the okay. I've been doing that all fucking week
I've been
since
thinking of
since
playing
you
it mentally
fucking
in my
did
head.
it. Okay.
So
Go on, Will.
is no exit better if there's no exit for any character at the end and they just all die? Is
Oh
this
hell yes.
automatically a better
Absolutely
movie?
hell yes.
Fatalistic, thematic. She has consequences for breaking the rules. She's in a helpless situation that never gets better. And things just keep getting worse and worse and worse. It basically, the whole place basically burns down and they freeze to death and no one comes.
Love it.
That's pretty much it. And you don't have the end card.
Everyone had an issue.
Because that would tie in because then she's like, and it ties into her story of like being an addict of like, she doesn't learn, she doesn't believe, she doesn't accept the program. She
He's
still
an
dies.
addict.
Except
He's
the
a-
bad guys.
He's a gambler.
What do you mean about the
addict.
bad
What are the bad? What's there?
So they were doing like some kind of.
They were working for Uncle
sex
Kenny.
trafficking.
Yeah, for
Sex
Uncle
trap,
Kenny. Yeah.
Well, one of them was. The other one was believing that it was something else.
They were
But
working
that's
for
what I mean.
Uncle
What's
who?
Uncle Kenny was the guy that kept on saying they're going back to. But the problem is like there's nothing. They're bad guys, generic bad
No,
guys.
One of them had mental issues.
Yeah, which,
and then the
Right,
other
so
one
he's
was
the fucking,
sex trafficking.
Okay.
but
for
they
money.
do that so he's like a bad guy at first because he has mental problems, and then the other guy is a sane person, so you think he's better, and then it turns out that he's manipulating him.
So they're the guys from Of Mice and Men. Got it.
Yeah. Lenny,
Out of 10,
4.
I give this one a 7.
5, solid 5. You gave this a 7. You
I
gave this
enjoyed
the
it.
same as Station
But if you
11.
so many times.
Let me say to Rob, somebody who hated Station 11. Do you think that Station 11 has better direction than this?
Yes.
One? By far.
Yes.
Right? And the performances are a bit better, and it's a bit more
better.
developed. And you're saying that you would give it, that I know things are subjective, but you would give it the same?
I think that things lie on different levels, and my 7 out of 10 for this doesn't mean it's on the same. Like I'd rather watch Station 11 than this.
Yeah.
But I still had fun watching this movie.
Yeah, I
it
did
has
too.
so many issues. Yes, it has plot stuff that did not even need to be there. Yes, it had some bad acting. It had
Yeah.
all these problems.
Yeah.
I still enjoyed it. It was fun.
I mean, like, I'd say it's weird because I'd, like, say so too. I actually think, like, I'm maybe the most forgiving of that, even though, like, that plays into your part of, like, ratings being subjective. Like, I did enjoy this. It's a solid 5 out of 10, and it's a movie my father's friend that he speaks to on the phone, hey, what'd you watch recently that's something I can watch? I'd be like, No Exit was okay.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I had no fun watching this, and that's why it's so low for me. I was watching
You're
it
like,
going,
it
this is
reminded you of the
fucking
one
stupid.
people, everybody you hated in your life taking money
Well,
from you.
if you think of it, if you watch your favorite genre, you're gonna put that on a high bar. Whereas if you're watching something that's
But
just
I'm also
silly,
going to
a
expect.
cartoon,
I'm going to expect better from things. I'm going to expect a standard for stuff that if this goes into my this is 8 and above. I expect a standard. This was very substandard, in my opinion.
but that's your opinion.
Yeah.
and it's set off.
That's
at
what a
the-
fucking opinion is, Philip.
That's why you're complaining about it. I don't know where I'm going.
After watching it,
But yeah, I enjoyed it. I had fun, and I know, and I wish it was a whodunit. I really was hurt.
The characters
I was
aren't there
crying.
for it,
Crap.
though. The characters aren't there. They can't
They could
sustain.
have.
I don't think they could have. But with the character work that's already there, how do you prolong
And I hate
that more?
whodunits.
I think
hate
there's
I
them
some
love
good
them.
whodunits.
I love them.
hate
They're
that
never
there's
done
so
one.
many
What's the
right
last
now.
good whodunit that you can remember?
The Night of is the only one that I can think of that I liked.
Supposedly, this big one where it's like
Death on the Nile.
improv. No, a celebrity improv. It's like TV.
Oh, Murderville? Doubt it.
I think so.
I watched the trailer.
wanna
It was
watch
cringe.
it.
It's an
I'll watch Murderville. I like Will. I like Will
Arnett.
Arnett.
Wanna
Yeah.
check-
No, I
like,
think
you
the
get
last
a random
good
celebrity
whodunit-
every episode. And be
The
like,
last good
okay.
whodunit I can recall watching, as sick as it is to make me say, feels like Kiss the Girls. Because I did
I've
not, even
never
in the
seen
book, I did not know who was
that
going
is
to
a
be the
long
bad guy
fucking
until the
time
end
ago.
of
You're
it.
telling me none of these murder mystery TV series.
Oh, I'm sure there's been
True
some,
Detective.
but I
Did you? How'd you?
True
feel?
Detective was good. That
It was
third
boring
season
for
or
me.
second season, like everyone else, was
What
dark.
was-
I liked the
bullshit.
second
That
season.
was crap.
What was the train one? The murder on the train, the recent one.
Oh,
Murder on
Orient
the Orient
Express.
Express.
Yeah,
That was
Orient Express.
garbage.
Did you watch?
I was bored. It was absolute.
Watch the original
Garbage.
by Sidney Lumet.
No,
It was nominated for like Best Picture and
I
Best
hate
Actor.
whodunits.
You know what else
What'd
was
you think
nominated
of
for
Knives
Best
Out,
Picture?
Phil?
The
What'd you
Artist.
think
I
of
didn't
Knives
watch
Out?
it.
And won.
Watch Knives Out.
You know why I didn't watch it? Because it's a whodunit.
Knives Out. You know what? That's a good point. Knives Out. Knives Out was a good one.
But like,
I enjoyed
if
Knives
you do
Out.
a whodunit with a clever concept,
That's Knives Out.
Yeah.
I'd say
okay,
watch
I've
that.
heard
It
it's
got a
good.
it
but
got a
I-
Best
I haven't
Screenplay
watched it.
nomination.
I can't give you a comment.
Okay, next time watch it, come back to us, and we'll cut to our.
Oh,
I'll
Awards
watch
mean
it and I'll
exactly
complain.
jack
Rob,
shit.
what was your rating?
4.
Okay.
I already. I went fucking first.
Yeah, let's
I
cut
missed it.
already.
I-
I need to go
I-
see
you-
Uncharted.
Fuck off.
Watchingcomplain.com.